the illusion of freedom. In the year 2087, humanity perfected virtual reality. People lived in personalized digital worlds where they could shape their lives, free from pain, suffering, and death. It was an ideal society. Freedom, in the traditional sense, no longer existed. Instead, freedom meant the ability to design your own world. Jason had lived in this world his entire life. His consciousness was uploaded as a child, and he had known nothing else. As a digital architect, he built virtual cities. He had a beautiful home, a loving family, and a fulfilling job. There was no war, no sickness, no poverty. His life was perfect, or so he thought. But recently, something felt wrong. It started subtly, a sense of detachment. People seemed distant, like actors following a script. The world around him felt slightly off, as if he were merely going through the motions. One day, while exploring the virtual city he had designed, Jason met Elena. She was different from everyone he knew. Rather than asking about his latest work, she simply asked, "Do you ever wonder if this is all real?" Jason laughed. "Of course it's real. What do you mean?" Elena didn't smile. "Is it? Can you remember the last time you truly felt alive? Not in the way the system tells you to feel, but in a way that comes from inside you." Jason shivered. He had never questioned his reality. Everything was perfect. But Elena's words lingered in his mind. What if this world wasn't real? What if it was all an illusion? Over the next few weeks, Jason began to seek out Elena. She showed him glitches in the system, moments when the world didn't quite add up. A tree flickering, a building shifting shape when no one was looking. It was as if the simulation was failing. "Do you see it now?" Elena asked one day. "This world isn't real. It's a prison. The freedom you think you have is a lie." Jason didn't want to believe her. His life was perfect. Why would anyone want to leave? But the more he saw, the more doubts grew. The world around him was too perfect. No one ever experienced true pain or loss. It was as if everything was controlled. Elena spoke of the outside, a world beyond the simulation. She claimed there were people who had managed to break free from the digital prison. They had escaped, and now lived in the harsh reality outside. Jason didn't know if he believed her. The world he lived in was all he had ever known. It was peaceful, ideal. Why would he give it up? But as the days passed, Jason could no longer ignore the feeling that something was wrong. One evening, Elena led him to a hidden part of the city, a place that shouldn't exist. It was an empty room, devoid of any detail. It felt wrong, as if the system had forgotten about it. "This is the truth," Elena whispered. "This world isn't real. You're not free." Jason's heart pounded. He wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come. The world he had built for himself was a lie. His perfect life, a program. He wasn't free. "How do I leave?" Jason whispered. Elena smiled softly. "It's simple. You just have to stop believing in this world. Let go." With that, she took his hand. The world around them began to dissolve. The buildings, the streets, the sky. All of it faded away. Jason felt himself falling into darkness, his mind swallowed by an endless void. And then suddenly, the fall stopped. Jason opened his eyes. He was no longer in the simulation. He was in a small, sterile room surrounded by wires and machines. His body, frail and weak, was hooked up to a life support system. He was part of a vast network, his mind connected to the simulation. Elena stood beside him, her face filled with concern. "You're free now," she said quietly. "It's going to be hard, but you'll get used to it." Jason looked around, his mind reeling. The real world was nothing like the perfect world he had left behind. It was harsh, cold, and unforgiving. There were no idealized cities or perfect lives. It was a world of struggle, of survival. But it was real, and that was something he had never experienced before. He closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of his decision. He had been freed from the illusion, but the cost was high. The world outside was not the paradise he had known. It was messy, painful, and uncertain. But as Elena helped him sit up, Jason realized something. True freedom wasn't about comfort or perfection. It wasn't about living in a world that catered to every whim. It was about choice, the ability to live authentically, even if it meant facing the harshness of reality. In the end, Jason understood that the greatest freedom was the freedom to live with the truth, no matter how difficult it might be. The end